one thing you're going to leave this place with is tons of uncertainty and about 8 billion questions. But here's the number one thing you need to remember. Come to Sustany, they'll invest in your company, and then you'll have the money to pay for Charles and make sure that Netkey takes care of your compliance. That's all you need to know, because I love everything DIY, and I think everyone should do everything themselves always, except for legal and except for compliance. So you need an investor in your company, and that's really important. Do we have a little clicker thingy? Because this thing is ridiculously long. Okay, good. Because I got added on yesterday. I jumped on board, and I was actually working on a presentation that I'm going to put out on Monday that has like 50 slides on it. And I was just one of the authors on it, but I'm going to use that as a crutch to go through certain segments that these guys already didn't touch, because you already got the best experts. I think there's a way with PDFs to make it like the view full screen, so then I could slide between the view, yeah, and then go full screen mode. And then I think this thing will work then. Oh yeah. Okay, so before I go into some of the stuff, I'm just going to do a quick plug for Onera, something I'm working on. So exactly what he said, none of those ERC20 or Ethereum-based security token products really exist yet, other than the people who are already doing it, like Securities. But I feel that those aren't going to really lay the foundation for the future. There are versions and things that are coming out. So I have partnered up with a few other people where we're exploring this initiative we're calling Onera, which will be a totally separate base layer protocol built for what we're calling smart securities and for the future of ownership. On the blockchain, it'll be its own separate blockchain. But I'll just quickly show a couple things there just because of the opportunity there is, but I know most of you guys are entrepreneurs who actually, how many of you are entrepreneurs? How many of you are investors? Service providers? I see a lot of shaky hands. So we got service providers and entrepreneurs who mostly want to raise money in the room, I think. So I'll just quickly touch on this because it's interesting, probably not because it's brass tacks to you guys, but there is a huge opportunity in digitizing, tokenizing, creating smart securities, whatever buzzword you want to use for it. Eventually it'll just be called securities, but there's no such thing as truly digital securities for the most part right now. People call them digital securities when a transfer agent sends you a document on DocuSign. That is digital, but that doesn't mean the security is digital. It doesn't mean the compliance is tied into it. It still has human intervention at every single step. So there is, the global equity market is $70 trillion alone. The alternative investment market just in the United States is $7 trillion a year. Not completely, right? So then there's debt, derivatives, global real estate. There's all these giant markets that eventually will get there, and that's why security tokens is really exciting. We're all focused on this one tiny part, which is startups raising money on the internet, which is freaking awesome, and why I got into this space to begin with. So I'm gonna pass through all this stuff. This is Onera, this initiative, this concept that we're putting together. You guys will hear more about it later. But one cool thing is that we broke down the 9 principles of Onera, or basically the 9 principles of ownership. And I think this is the future on which the whole security token market will live on. And there are limitations currently on Ethereum that make it that this will not scale on Ethereum. That could change over the next year or two, like a lot of people are promising, but it doesn't look like it's going to happen quickly, which is why it's exciting to see where we are. I'm going to skip through to that longer presentation that I told you we're releasing. I was going to focus more on the evolution of capital formation, but I think that between the 2 earlier presentations, we learned more than we need. So everything that Charles discussed is simplified in this document. So I don't know, well, the little laser doesn't work pointing it at the screen, but there's the three main segments. Reg D, which is the way startups raised money before. I may have stolen this from a Homier document before, actually. Reg D is the way companies raised money just a few years ago, and they still do now. When you raise money on a convertible note, on a safe, on a whatever, you're doing a Reg D offering. There's versions of it, which is, are you publicly soliciting, which means are you allowed to advertise it or not? And then there's Reg A+, which is the light version of going public that Charles mentioned, Reg CF. The reason why this is interesting to us in the crypto world is because we went from equity crowdfunding and peer-to-peer lending to ICOs. And in 2018, $12 billion was raised by ICOs, which is exciting. It was the Wild West. A lot of it was real, a lot of it wasn't. There's chaos and craziness, but we're sort of hoping to maybe catch some of that lightning in a bottle for the securities world who's doing it right and legally and compliantly. So that's where we are, right? So we're in this document, we are fanning the flames of this talk between digital securities or security tokens. We're calling them smart securities. We know that people argue with us, and I like the term digital securities, but it's really hard for people that aren't in our bubble to understand that because they think their securities are digital anyway. When I raised money from a company in 2012, I signed every document on my phone. I sent everybody PDF versions. We never printed out versions. That's a digital security, isn't it? If you go by the real definition of digital, it was, but the actual security itself didn't hold any of the compliance features or do any of the things that a smart contract does, which is why we want to call it smart security. Automatically verify investor eligibility, improve the cap table management through the fact that it's all electronic. It should all talk to one central system and be able to understand that. Automate the investor rights and enforce regulations for around the world. That's what a system that we envision in the future is, that people like Netkey would be nodes in the system and actually offer through technology those compliance solutions that will integrate automatically into the securities so that you don't actually have to have human intervention. So that's the idea of where we are. Now, I'm talking about, like I said, there's synonyms for these things: security tokens, tokenized asset-based tokens, digital securities, enterprise blockchain tokens. People are calling them all these things, but at the end of the day, they're these digital securities, right? They're these smart securities we're talking about. And there's another market sizing slide to show just how huge it is. Here's a smart security stack to show you how complicated it is. This presentation I'm going to have online Monday that everyone can download for free, and it's meant to be a research doc. I hate slides that have this many words on them, so I apologize for putting it up in front of you guys, but it's just to show you how wild and exciting this stuff can be. Now, like I said, you want the right compliance software and you want the right compliance attorneys, but this is the really basic process of what a security token offering is. It's the pre-offering, the setup phase. The company's formed, the offering is structured, legal review, and you start marketing, right? After legal. Don't start marketing before legal. That's a huge problem. Then there's the primary issuance, right? That's when the token is issued, when you do the KYC, the AML, the accreditation, and then the secondary services are what we discussed, the liquidity, the trading on the platforms, T0 when it launches, and all those. This is what's some of my favorite stuff is where we are now and what happened in the last year. So the first publicly traded smart security token was Spice VC. It actually transferred on AirSwap and Open Finance this year. So it was the first time an actual security token on the blockchain was traded between an investor, between investors. And that was not just the primary issuance of the company giving it to the investor. It was one investor selling it to another investor on an exchange. That's huge. That's sort of historic in our space. And then, of course, the first regulated exchange went live. That was Open Finance with Blockchain Capital, Spice VC, and a few other tokens. Primarily, if not all, were actually powered by Securities so far, but there's Security, there's a bunch of others who are doing really, really cool things and also issuing tokens, Polymath. The first real estate offering, so Indiegogo actually offered a $18 million raise for the St. Regis in Aspen. One of, shoot, I don't remember the specific day, I think it's next week, Security Token Academy is actually doing a whole online thing about real estate security offerings. You should check it out. It's a whole webinar kind of thing where they have somebody in Aspen, somebody around the world. They're a cool company. You should check them out. And then they did the first tokenized student housing, first tokenized accelerator fund. So something we talked about earlier is 4 of the first 5 security tokens issued were actually funds, venture funds. One of them was 22X, which is sort of an accelerator fund, a diversified fund that invested in 30 separate startups. They put that fund onto the blockchain, basically, and are allowing people to trade the tokens. Hey, there's Charles Carter. Benefits. You guys see all the benefits, the fractional ownership, 24/7 markets. It's basically the same benefits of the internet. It's insane to internet-age people that you can't trade stocks past, what is it, 5 or 6 p.m. New York time. It just doesn't make sense. Like, this is a global industry. It's a global, I wanted to say it's a global world. That's pretty redundant. Automated compliance, rapid settlement, increased liquidity, cost reduction. Hopefully when technology actually works, the costs go down and things, Reg A plus versus the traditional, going public, right? There should be cost reductions in those things. And then of course I have a slide. This is a research deck, so it's really, 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 really deep dive. This goes into the segments of the ecosystem. You've already covered these. This just goes into it on a little bit more deep basis of each company. So you guys will all see this stuff. And so we probably shouldn't go through this. We should probably save it for questions after the fact. But the future of this stuff is 1, education, 2, we're fanning the flames of the smart security talk here. Smart securities, not security tokens. Like I said, they're synonymous, but we're trying to get a term that makes sense. We're talking about infrastructure actually launching, not everyone talking about security token standards that aren't being used, but actually let's get some usable things that are better than what's there now. Right now is historic because of the first versions, but again, we're going to build something that's a much more exciting in the future than what's going on now and much more efficient than, shoestring and bubblegum. And then, of course, these new frameworks we believe will emerge, and whether it's going to be Polymath or Onera or Securities doing their own thing, I have a feeling that somebody will do a fork of a blockchain or create their own blockchain that's specifically made for securities. I really don't believe, at least the speed of change and the speed of build with things like Ethereum or some of the other networks are going to be able to support the long-term future of securities. We're talking about trillions of dollars in assets. We're talking about millions of transactions a second around the world. We're not there yet with Ethereum. I hope we are one day, but we'll see. And that's it. We have the challenges to overcome that we discussed, the liquidity challenges, the regulatory and compliance, custody issuance, and the digital identity stuff is I think the biggest challenges we're going to have to overcome. But that's where I feel we'll easily get to when those new technologies occur. I think we'll get there with questions. These are the groups that put together this document, but I do Security Token Summit. We just announced it April 8th at the Ritz-Carlton. I'll give these guys some codes or something so that we can give all of you guys like significantly discounted tickets or something because you came out here on a weeknight and you guys are awesome. So I'd rather hear from Justin. He's smarter and better looking than me, and we'll get to debate this stuff in a minute.